Welcome to Travel Italia, the show about travel in Italy. Ciao amici, welcome back to Travel Italia, your guide to traveling smarter and more joyfully through Italy. Today's episode is about a topic we don't always talk about enough in the planning process, and that is the off-season. What it really means, why travelers are choosing it more often, and how it can save you money and, in some cases, improve your experience. We'll talk about what off-season and shoulder season actually are, the pros and cons of traveling during these seasons, how prices compare from flights to hotels, and what you can do and see that's uniquely rewarding. So let's go. Now, when we talk about Italy's travel seasons, there are generally three buckets. High season, late June through August, which gives you the warmest weather, obviously during school holidays and big crowds. Shoulder season, which is spring, late March through May, and fall, late September through October. This season gives you mild weather, fewer crowds, and reduced prices. Now, off-season, by now, off-season used to include spring and fall, but now off-season is only the winter months, November through March, excluding holiday times like Christmas. So off-season will give you the lowest prices and the quietest streets, the least crowded time of year. Now, shoulder season, in my opinion, is often the sweet spot. Not too cold, not too crowded, and much more affordable than high summer. But the off-season does have some pros and cons as well. So let's talk about those pros and cons of the off-season. The first pro is obviously big savings on prices. This is one of the biggest reasons people choose the off-season. Traveling during the off-season and shoulder seasons can save you quite a bit. Let me give you some examples. Flights. Now, airfare to Italy can drop 20 to 50% outside peak travel months. Let me give you an example. A flight that might cost you $800 to $900 from New York to Rome in the summer months in the high season can fall to around $500 or sometimes even less USD in the off season like January, February. So that's quite a difference, isn't it? What about hotels and rentals? Well, hotel and rental prices follow a similar pattern. In major Italian cities, rooms can cost up to 30 to 40% less in winter and shoulder season compared to summer. Lower demand means better rates and more choice from boutique hotels to apartments. You might be asking, well, what about daily costs? Do those change? No, the daily costs really don't change. Prices of restaurants and transport don't fluctuate as much with seasons, but the reduced accommodation and flight prices are where the real savings are. Another pro of the off-season is fewer crowds and more authentic experiences. Now, Italy's most iconic sites get very, very crowded in the summer. In the off and shoulder seasons, lines shrink, and you can actually experience a place instead of navigating crowds. In the off-season, you'll experience quieter streets, easier access to museums, and even more pleasant moments at big sites because you're not shoulder to shoulder with thousands of people. Another pro is milder weather in many regions. Now, in northern Italy, winter is winter. Snow in the Alps, cool days in Milan and Venice. You have to dress appropriately. But if you choose milder parts like Rome, Naples, Sicily, the Amalfi Coast, so central and southern Italy, temperatures in late fall or winter can sit around 15 to 18 degrees Celsius. That's 59 to 64 degrees Fahrenheit, which is pleasant compared to summer heat and crowds. Because remember, Italy gets very, very hot in the summertime. So if you're someone who does not enjoy heat, the off season may be for you. Shoulder seasons like April, May, and October, November often offer the best of both worlds, mild weather and much better prices than July or August. Okay, so those are some pros. Let's talk about cons. One of the cons is, of course, the weather, colder weather. So, northern Italy, like I said, can be quite chilly. And some outdoor activities like gardens, or if you wanted to visit a beach town or bike through the Dolomites, the off season really isn't ideal for those kinds of activities. So, if you're thinking of a lazy vacation by the seaside, sipping an Aperol spritz on the beach, then the off season is not a good choice. And also, another con is seasonal closure. So, some coastal towns and rural experiences close for part of the fall and winter. So, for example, if you would like to go to Lake Como. Well, the town of Como, which is the biggest town on the lake, that's a big city. Everything's open. There might be some restaurants closed in the off season, but in general, life goes on as normal. But the surrounding towns, some of the most scenic towns around the lake, may be a ghost town. A lot of those small scenic towns around Lake Como, Bellagio, Varena, Menaggio, those areas that are very iconic, a lot of those become really, I'm not exaggerating, ghost towns in the wintertime because it is the right time for restaurant owners, shop owners to take their vacations. Just makes sense for them. So a lot of services are not open, restaurants, shops. For example, Lake Maggiore, if you're thinking of going there, the Borromeo Islands, the palaces on those islands are closed in the wintertime, and they stay closed until early spring. So keep that in mind. Another con is obviously shorter days. So museums and attractions, they might have shorter hours in the winter, and some seasonal tours maybe don't run all year round. So you have some limitations. But many cultural staples, museums, churches, historic sites are open all year, and fewer people means more space and serenity inside them. I would say this is really true for Italy's big cities. Just about everything remains open all winter, so seasonal closures really don't affect bigger cities. Now, if you choose to go to Italy in the off season, what are some things that you can do? If you can't do sports or be outside for long periods of time, what can you do? Well, Italy's off season and shoulder seasons are full of harvest festivals, wine events, local food festivals that are called sagre, around regional specialties. You know, Italy is famous for their food. So, all over Italy, there are these food festivals that happen at different points in the year. These are an affordable, authentic way to engage with the culture, and they're usually free or very low cost. So, for example, in December, there's the Sagra del Cinghiale. This is the Wild Boar Festival in Tuscany. In October, there's the Festa dell'Uva. This is the Grape Festival in Lazio. And in February, there's the Sagra del Tartufo Nero, which is the Black Truffle Festival in Norcia, Umbria. So, just to give you an idea, these, if you're into food and want to have a very authentic local experience, this is something that you could add to your itinerary in the off season. Of course, Visiting museums, famous museums, and galleries in the off season is wonderful. Major institutions like the Vatican, museums, and others. The queue time is much less, obviously, and there's more flexibility, which of course just makes it a more pleasant experience. What else can you do in the off season? Well, city strolling and cafe culture. You'll meet locals instead of tourists sipping espressos at historic cafes in Rome and Florence. And you'll just have more interaction with locals, I believe. Another thing that you can do in the off season that you can't do in the summertime is visit Christmas markets. Italy, especially in northern Italy, has some really beautiful Christmas markets in cities like Verona, Florence, Aosta, Bologna. All over northern Italy, there are many, many beautiful Christmas markets. I already mentioned the seasonal food festivals like the truffle season in Piedmont and Tuscany. Or if you're into skiing, it's fantastic and actually costs a lot less than you would expect. So, is the off season right for you? I would say if you've been dreaming of an Italian beach experience or hiking through the Dolomites, then maybe the shoulder season or the high season is best for you. But if you're a traveler who just wants to experience Italy, soak in the culture, the art, the history, the food, the off season still allows you to do all of these things. Yes, the weather may not be perfect, but you get lower prices on flights and hotels, fewer crowds, authentic local experiences, seasonal events and festivals, shorter museum lines, and more space. The timing of vacations to Italy is really changing in the last few years. More than 1 in 4 travelers to Italy now prefers off season travel or shoulder season, and the trend is only growing. So, whether you're on a budget or just craving fewer crowds, or milder weather, or you want a richer cultural experience, I think the off season has a lot to offer. Thanks for listening to Travel Italia. If this episode has helped you rethink when to travel to Italy, share it with a friend who's planning a trip and subscribe so you don't miss our next travel tip episode. Ciao, grazie e buon viaggio.